For the first time in NCAA football history, there are going to be 100 games of NCAA Football 23 in one video. You're going to get overtime thrillers, defensive battles with few points, and gameplay from every single game mode. All of these clips are pulled from the numerous series across my channel, so beware of spoilers, and thank you all for getting me to 100,000 subscribers, which I'll talk more on at the end of the video. Now, enjoy rewatching history. Deion Sanders and Georgia Tech could still make a bowl game, but Shedeur Sanders was not off to a good start against Wake Forest with this throw. And unfortunately, we would end up going down early to Sam Hartman and the Demon Deacons. Deion Sanders would have no choice but to bench his son again if he had one more bad drive, and after he continued to struggle to move the ball down the field, junior quarterback Jeff Sims took the field to start the second quarter. But our offense still wasn't performing well, at least it wasn't until the end of the first half, when Jeff Sims decided to use his cannon of an arm to hook up with junior receiver Ryan King for the 58-yard stunner. Midway through the third quarter, we fell behind 7, and Jeff Sims really wasn't capitalizing on his opportunity. But Dante Smith got us right back in it. However, with 3 minutes left in the game, Wake Forest took control with this play. But again, that didn't last long. I think we were finally witnessing the breakout of a star wide receiver and Ryan King. He took this pass 79 yards to the house untouched. And then on third down, our defense got a stop that would change everything for us. We were going to get the ball back with a minute left in the game, and Travis Hunter put us in a great field position with this return. But we didn't even have to settle for 3 because once again, Jeff Sims found his favorite receiver, Ryan King, and we went up 7, which got us the massive win. And Travis Hunter got absolutely railed on the opening kickoff return. We were once again struggling to move the ball, and after Jeff Sims continued to make plays like this, Deion wanted to put his son back in the game. But he couldn't because Jeff finally got us into the end zone, and then midway through the second quarter, he did it again. We went up 7 at the end of the first half, but that lead didn't last long as we gave it up just minutes into the third quarter. However, Jeff Sims and Malik Rutherford responded right back, and all of a sudden, we were going back and forth with the Panthers. With 34 seconds left in the game, Jeff Sims had a chance to lead us down the field for a field goal, but he couldn't do that, so we had to go into overtime against Pitt, and it couldn't have started off any better with perfect blocks and a beautiful screen play by Dante Smith. And then our defense came up clutch, stopping Pitt on a huge 4th and 3, so we became 5-5. So he got to open up his QB1 in our home game against Wake Forest, and for the first time, he didn't turn it over on the opening drive. I felt like our defense was the key reason for our success so far this season, because even though our offense wasn't bad, it also wasn't great. Fortunately, Jeff Sims ended the first half hooking up with his favorite wide receiver, Ryan King. And by the fourth quarter, we were starting to take full control of the game, with Travis Hunter once again having an incredible performance on both sides of the ball with this 51-yard touchdown. And in the end, Shedeur Sanders helped us run out the clock, but that was the only action he would get in this game. Travis Hunter was the star of the team, and we were focused on bringing in a 6'8" star tight end. Our great start of the year got us ranked, and we had a top 25 matchup at home. Our offensive line was letting Jeff Sims get run through by the Wolfpack defense, and nobody got on the board until the second quarter when Travis Hunter got burnt for a 19-yard touchdown. He tried to redeem himself on offense seconds later, but even though he outran NC State's defense, Jeff Sims underthrew him, and he was having a terrible first half with us not getting into the end zone once. Junior kicker Jude Kelly finally got us on the board, and once again, in the second half, it was Shedeur Sanders' chance to shine. However, our offensive line was playing so poorly, I'm not sure it would matter how well he played. The Wolfpack defense forced us to settle for 3 again, and we were slowly getting right back into the game. It was a defensive battle, and we were having to fight our hardest just to gain a few yards. On third down, the play broke down, but then, Shedeur Sanders showed why he was so good as he escaped the pocket and got all the way to midfield before being tackled. His elusiveness was single-handedly putting us in a position to win, and Jude Kelly won it for us as time expired. We won a game without scoring a touchdown, and that really proves how good our defense is. We had to play at Death Valley, and there is nothing I'd love more to do than leave the stadium with a 5-0 start to the year. However, we went down 14 points to the Tigers with 2 minutes left in the second quarter, and it was not looking good for us right before halftime. Jeff Sims had failed to get us into the end zone in back-to-back games, so Deion Sanders put his son back in to mix things up. He ended his first drive by throwing a dot to finally get us on the board, and then he ended the third quarter by laying a perfectly thrown ball into Travis Hunter's hands for a 33-yard tutty. I couldn't believe it, but after this pass from Shedeur Sanders to sophomore running back Antonio Martin, it was a one-possession game, and all we needed was one stop on defense to get back in it. The dream of one of the greatest comebacks of all time was alive until Travis Hunter didn't win the jump ball at the end of the game, so unfortunately, we fell short to Clemson. It was rivalry week versus number 6 Georgia, and we would have to play perfectly. Shedeur Sanders was still out for this game, so Jeff Sims was our starter, and this could be our biggest win ever. Jeff Sims was threading the needle, and we went into the half with a lead. It was a back and forth game, but we were still in it by the end of the third quarter, and Shiloh Sanders was delivering some massive hits. The Bulldogs tied it up here, but in the end, we just ran out the clock and settled for a field goal. Jude Kelly would secure the huge upset. We were off to a terrible start against number 20 UCLA. It was not looking good for us as they continued to extend their lead, and Jeff Sims played his last snap ever after he threw this interception. So an injured Shedeur Sanders got to come into the game, and the ball placement here was immaculate. We'd go on to finally score, and then Travis Hunter would start the second half by catching this 46-yard dot from Shedeur Sanders. He continued to destroy the man that was covering him, burning him again and taking this one 66 yards to the house and putting us within 2. I couldn't believe it, but for the third time in a row, the UCLA defense played us underneath, and Travis Hunter took advantage of it again for an 83-yard touchdown this time. But with a minute and a half left, we fell down 6 points. And we put ourselves in a position to potentially take a lead, but in the end, our attempt fell short, so our quarterbacks ended their senior year with a Mayo Bowl loss. This was a must-win game against number 14, North Carolina. And we finally had a Travis Hunter sighting. As our defensive captain, he hadn't been on the offensive side of the ball as much this year, but Dion decided to put him back in the slot, and it was working perfectly. We pinned the Tar Heels all the way back on the 1-yard line, and because of that, we were able to get a safety. However, we weren't the only team making big plays on defense, with North Carolina forcing Joey Parks to fumble the ball away, which would lead to a Tar Heel touchdown. And by midway through the third quarter, we fell behind 2 possessions on this little run. It wasn't getting any better either, with Joey Parks fumbling for the second time of the day while trying to get into the end zone. However, by the fourth quarter, it was only a 5-point game, and we still had a chance. This laser from Joey Parks to sophomore tight end Paul Smith would give us the lead, and then Travis Hunter would get the 2-point conversion. Our defense would force a huge stop here on the Tar Heels with a big hit, so they could only tie it up, and we would get set to kick the game winner. Senior Jude Kelly would get the job done, and we escaped with the win. Once again, Tyson Maguez made a huge play, forcing a fumble on the Hurricanes, and senior quarterback Eric Reed Jr. would pick it up off the ground and take it all the way back, untouched, to give us a lead. To start the second quarter, Malik made this wild catch, but our success didn't last long, as a few minutes later, Miami would respond back and get the game within 1 possession. And I wish I was joking when I say this, but you all can see it coming. Miami ended the half with a Hail Mary touchdown, so it was a tie game, and the Hurricanes took a lead in the third quarter, so it felt like we were in a lot of trouble. But fortunately, Antonio Martin busted off this run at the start of the fourth. However, Miami took their lead back here, and then Joey Parks threw this interception straight to the Hurricanes, which hurt our chances of winning. But our defense held them to 3 again, and we were driving down the field to win it. With 6 seconds left in the game, Joey Parks stepped up and delivered his biggest pass ever, and then Jude Kelly sealed the win. The ACC championship was off to an interesting start, with Paul Smith mossing this defender and Clemson responding right back. It seemed like this was going to be a back and forth battle, and even though we had a decent lead here, Joey Parks got hurt, so we were stuck using our backup quarterback the rest of the season, and that would make winning an ACC championship much harder. Chris Stevens was a true freshman quarterback, and he didn't have much chemistry with anyone on our team, so we were struggling. The game was in the hands of our defense, and we only had a 5-point lead. Chris Stevens was trying his best to make plays for us, but it just wasn't working out against the Tigers, so it was a good thing that our defense was still solid because they put Clemson's kicker out of his field goal range. But that didn't matter in the end. Deion Sanders called a wide receiver screen, Chris Stevens threw it straight to the cornerback, and they would take it back for 6 and get the 2-point conversion. This was a huge 4th and 3 that we desperately needed to get, and that would end up leading to the go-ahead touchdown. So the game was in the hands of our defense again, and they could have ended it here, but somehow Clemson picked it up, so we just had to get the stop on a later 4th down, and that would seal the ACC championship. We had to play 6 ranked teams in a row, and Arizona was our first matchup. We had a bunch of new starting wide receivers like junior Clayton Bryant, who pulled off this filthy spin move and put us on the board first. Another one was former 4-star recruit sophomore Jamil Sutherland, and at 6'4", he was tough to bring down. I think it's safe to say this was Deion's most talented receiving room yet, with freshman Seth Coleman hauling in this 45-yard touchdown on his debut. But on the other side of the ball, our defense was rough. After losing a ton of seniors, we had a lot of new faces in our secondary, but at least we had senior KJ Miles at defensive tackle, who already had 3 sacks. Our defense gave up 31 points through just 2.5 quarters, and by the 4th, we found ourselves down by 10 to the Wildcats. The sophomore tried to hook up with the other sophomore in the end zone, but Willie Tucker couldn't hold on to it, so it was a good thing he made up for it on the next play, mossing the Arizona safety and reeling it in. With 16 seconds left in the game, Joey Parks delivered another laser to him, and Arizona almost pulled off the miracle Hail Mary play here, with one of their receivers coming down with it, but we stopped him short of the end zone, so we escaped with a win. We had a top 10 matchup, and beating North Carolina on the road wouldn't be easy. We started off hot, scoring the first 2 touchdowns of the night, but North Carolina kept it close as we continued to go back and forth against each other. With about 20 seconds left in the first half, they tied it up on this touchdown throw, and with the Tar Heels offense playing this well, we were in trouble. Antonio Martin probably could have broken off this run for a huge touchdown play, but unfortunately, he just didn't have the top end speed to do it, so we had to rely on Joey Parks to deliver a dot instead. To end the third quarter, North Carolina took a lead on this run, and then Joey Parks blindly threw his first interception of the game, which ended up leading to our defense giving up another touchdown to the Tar Heels. With 4 minutes left, Joey Parks connected with Justin Adams to get us within 7, and then he tied up the game with this throw to Jamil Sutherland. 20 seconds remained, and we had an opportunity to get in field goal range and go for the win. As time expired, kicker William Parker sealed the game. Our undefeated season would need to continue at Pitt, and I don't know why we had to get off to such a bad start, falling behind by 14. This field goal ended up making it 28-3, and as a team that plays in the city of Atlanta, it was time that we finally got revenge. The Panthers' lead was slowly shrinking as Joey Parks scrambled in to get us within 2 possessions, and then near the end of the third quarter, he delivered another end zone dot. But our comeback was stopped for the moment as our defense got run through by the Pitt offense. However, it wasn't over yet with Joey Parks throwing another touchdown and us picking up the conversion. With 2 minutes left, we had the ball and a good chance of winning after Antonio Martin busted off this 20-yard run. But I was afraid Joey Parks left way too much time on the clock. Luckily, in the end, the Panthers couldn't move the ball, and we improved to 10-0. This was a top 5 matchup and a rivalry game, so you knew that it was going to be a good one and probably come down to the wire. Gunnar Stockton tied it right back up with this touchdown run, and we were going back and forth. With 2 minutes left in the quarter, Joey Parks continued to dominate, and he wasn't slowing down, throwing his 3rd touchdown of the day. Through one half, we combined for 52 points, and we continued to trade touchdown for touchdown. But then, Georgia got a massive defensive stop, tackling Joey Parks in the end zone, so by the time we got the ball back, we had about a minute to get down the field, and then we made a mistake by staying in bounds, and the clock would continue to run, so Joey Parks couldn't get the snap off in time, and we lost to our rivals. The ACC championship was set in the snow, and we would have to win this game. Midway through the second quarter, Jerry Jones gave Florida State the lead, and we were struggling to move the ball offensively. We would go into the half down by 7, and then go scoreless through the whole third quarter. It wasn't looking good for us, but then Jamil Sutherland changed everything. The Seminoles went with press man coverage, and that wasn't smart because Jamil destroyed it with ease and got us within 3, while also hoping Joey Parks set a school record. With less than a minute left, Antonio Martin gave us the lead, and our defense would hold Florida State, so Deion Sanders got Georgia Tech another ACC championship. We finally made a national championship, and this was our chance to win it all. Even though UCF was undefeated, they weren't off to a good start, giving up 2 easy touchdowns, and by the end of the third quarter, we still had a 2-possession lead, so we were getting comfortable. Joey Parks extended our lead by even more with this run, and in the end, we were going to beat the Knights. So Deion Sanders got Georgia Tech a championship in just 4 seasons. I'd have to go out and prove it was my spot to lose against Boise State, and midway through the second quarter, I faked the handoff, I saw a ton of open space, so I scrambled in for my first collegiate touchdown. Then, on the next drive, we went for it on a long 4th and 12, and I delivered a laser to the end zone. I was trying to use my legs as much as I could, because I knew that I was faster than most of the other players out there on the field. But right before halftime, I tried to thread the needle, and I ended up throwing my first collegiate interception. That one play put me on the coach's bad side, and if I wasn't able to finish with Kalen DeBoer's trust above 0, I would lose the starting quarterback job. Going into the 4th, we were up 7, and we would take a 10-point lead on this field goal, which was going to end up being enough to get us the win. But head coach Kalen DeBoer did not trust me. In my first game back, we were taking on 2-1 Arizona. But our play calling was horrible as we ran halfback draw on 3rd and 16. And once they finally let me throw the ball, Terrell Bynum stopped his route and just ran away from the pass. However, I was able to bounce back from that interception and find sophomore wide receiver Giles Jackson for the 70-yard bomb the next possession. And then I finished the job by running it in for the touchdown. I wasn't done though, as I took us down the field right before halftime, and I scrambled in for my 2nd touchdown of the night. Midway through the third quarter, I got absolutely obliterated, and I got hurt on this wide receiver screen that never got open. But by the 4th quarter, I was back in the game, and I was going to do anything I could to get us a win. A little bit later in the quarter, I stepped up, and I threw what should have been the game-tying touchdown, but Rome Duns couldn't hold on to it. My receivers weren't catching anything that I threw their way, and on the biggest play of the game, Coach took the ball out of my hands. This was a must-win game if we wanted a chance at making a bowl game this season, but once again, I was suffering from having a receiving core with no hands, and hell, I think Shaquem Griffin could even do better than this. But it didn't matter what I thought, I was just a player on the team, and I still needed to build a connection with all of my receivers. Midway through the third, Coach wanted me to throw a completely locked up wide receiver screen, so I held onto the ball, I fumbled it for 6, and we were down by 21. In response, I tried my hardest to take my team all the way down the field and get us on the board, but I ended up taking a big hit and hurting my knee. By the second half, I was back in the game, and I knew that I wanted to at least make the game a close one, so on the next play, I scanned the field, and I saw that Rome Odunze had beaten his man. I let it fly, and that 56-yard touchdown got us within 18 points. On the next drive, I continued my dominance, finding tight end K. Doughton for the huge gain, but later on that drive, somehow I got a stinger on this play right here, so Dylan Morris came in, he didn't pick up the third down, and our kicker missed the field goal. The next time I came in the game, I watched another ball slip out of my receiver's hands, but I still managed to take the team down the field, finding Terrell Bynum for this 42-yard completion. And from there, Richard Newton easily got into the end zone, and when we went for 2, I was able to connect for the conversion. All of a sudden, we were within 10, and we had the ball back. I confidently threw a deep ball to Tyrell Bynum, who shed the safety's tackle, and he got us within 3. Once again, our defense got another stop, and I had a chance to secure the starting spot. I saw Rome Odunze breaking free, and I found him for the touchdown. That was enough to win. After being ranked as a top 25 team, we had to go out and beat Stanford, but they were getting in pressure so fast that I barely had any time to make a read. However, that didn't stop me from taking our team down the field, and we were getting within scoring distance fast. After breaking an instant sack, I tried to take off and make a play out of it, but I was too exhausted to get anywhere, and I ended up getting hurt. I was only out for half a quarter though, and by the time I was back, I was ready to dominate, but I had no time to do anything. Our defense had been outstanding, so by the third quarter, we still had a lead, but that didn't last long, so I tried to get our offense going, but the rain made it really hard to hold on to the ball, and it was still a tie game going into the fourth. With 2 minutes left in the game, the ball was in my hands, and I had a chance to take us down and win, but I threw this interception instead. I couldn't believe it. I had more faith in my tight end to get open on the linebacker one-on-one, but it didn't even matter that I threw that interception because I was able to hook up with Terrell Bynum and tie the game on this monster play. And after that, our kicker put us up 1, so the game came down to a Stanford field goal, and they made it. This was the most important game of the season because if we won this game, we still had a chance at the Pac-12 championship, but Richard Newton couldn't pick up a simple 4th and 1, and we were down by 13 early, so I decided I was going to step up and make sure that we had a chance to win this game, and Terrell Bynum and I were moving the Huskies offense flawlessly down the field to the best of our abilities, and I capped the drive off with this easy throw to Rome Odunze. After our defense got a huge interception, we had a chance to take the lead, but Quentin Moore dropped the pass, and we had to settle for 3. However, right before halftime, I found wide open Rome Odunze, who also couldn't hold on to it, so I got frustrated and decided to use my legs, which worked out really well as I picked up the huge gain, and on the next play, I did the same thing, getting us another first down. The third time wasn't the charm though, and I gained almost no yards on the run, and the worst part was I got hurt. But evidently I'm just a baby because by the start of the second half, I was back out there and I was throwing interceptions, and yes, I meant to say interceptions. It wasn't my best 2 drives, but I was able to bounce back and give us a lead. However, California took the lead right back, but I wasn't done. I found Rome Odunze over the top of the Golden Bear defense, and he took it all the way to the house to put us back up 4. With 3 minutes left in the game, I was exhausted, and I fell an inch short of the goal line while also getting hurt, so I watched Sam Horde blow it on the 1-inch line, and we settled for 3. Fortunately, our defense played really well. We were able to run out the clock, but if we won this game, we would be bowl eligible, so I was ready to rise to the occasion. And that's exactly what I did, as I used my legs to outrun the Arizona State defense and put us up 6. With less than 2 minutes left in the second quarter, I delivered this dot to Quentin Moore, and I finished the drive finding him again. In the third quarter, what happens to me every game happened again as I fumbled the ball away and I was injured for the millionth time. So I didn't get to come back in until the fourth quarter, but we were only down 3, and I ended up taking us down the field and finishing the drive off with this 21-yard run to put us up 4. Unfortunately, our defense collapsed, and I had less than a minute to move us down the field, but I did it with ease. I rolled out, and I connected with wide-open senior receiver Terrell Bynum to give us the lead with 35 seconds left, and my 4 touchdowns won me player of the game. This was our 3rd snow game of the year, and we hadn't won in this weather yet, but my goal was to change that today as I started the game out throwing lasers all over the field, and for a split second, I became prime Michael Vick, taking off and rushing all the way down to the 6-yard line, where I'd get injured like always, and then I got to watch from the sideline as Sam Hjord scored for us. Normally when I come back from injury, we were losing, but this time we actually had a lead, and on 4th and inches, I rolled out and made sure that we went up 21-0. Then we got the ball back, but I decided to throw an awful interception, and learning nothing from Jason Street, I went to make the tackle, but fortunately I didn't get hurt. However, it didn't take long for me to get injured, as midway through the 3rd quarter, I landed badly after this big run, and I was definitely struggling to walk this one off, but sure enough, with 2 minutes left in the 4th quarter, I was back out there. In fact, I'd really appreciate it if somebody let me know in the comments how many times I got hurt this season. It's been a ridiculous amount, but Oregon State tied the game up, and with 23 seconds left, it looked like we were going to go to overtime, but I didn't want to do that. I'd probably get injured again in overtime, so I made sure that we got into field goal range with this amazing drive halfway down the field, and we were able to win by 3. I was taking on my school's biggest rival, and once again, we were going to have to play in the snow. My goal for the game was to avoid getting injured, but that didn't stop me from throwing my body all over the field as I dove for the end zone to tie the game up. With 90 seconds left in the half, we were losing by 14, but then I saw Roma Dunze had toasted the corner guarding him. He turned on the burners and ran for an 85-yard touchdown to keep the game close. And with 35 seconds left in the half, the drive to tie the game began. I scrambled and I saw a wide open wide receiver, but I didn't set my feet, so I underthrew the ball and turned it over. To start the second half, I picked up right where I left off, turning the ball over for no reason, and I was the most inconsistent and injury-prone quarterback there was. So even though I was a former 5-star recruit, nobody would want me to transfer to their school, but I was going to keep proving myself at Washington, and I tied the game up when I found wide open Terrell Bynum in the end zone. With less than 4 minutes left, it was a tie game, and I went out and threw a dot to Quentin Moore for a 25-yard gain, but I managed to somehow get hurt on that play, so I watched my team drive down and go up 3, but I wanted to get back in there and help us finish the game, so I did just that. And on a simple read option, I put us up 10. That was enough to win the Apple Cup, and we had to continue to win, so taking down the Sun Devils at home was my next task. I started the game off by threading the needle and finding sophomore Jalen Polk in the end zone for 6. Even though Arizona State responded right back, I wasn't worried because I was able to use my cannon of an arm to connect with Giles Jackson, who outran the entire Sun Devil defense. And low-key, Giles Jackson was starting to become my favorite target and my first read. Unfortunately, our defense wasn't showing up, so we were in a tie game with less than 2 minutes left in the 2nd quarter. But I was running and slinging the ball all over the field, so when this ball flew 50 yards in the air to Jalen McMillan, I wasn't even surprised. A minute later, somehow the Sun Devils got into the end zone, but with 22 seconds left in the half, this pass to Thomas Collins for a 75-yard touchdown turned this game into our biggest shootout yet. It was also my best collegiate performance so far, as I threw for my 6th touchdown with 4 minutes left in the game. Our defense finally decided to lock up, and at this point, I was just showing off my arm. That touchdown throw put me in the school record books, and I finished with an insane stat line, but we had to figure out how to win again. Through 2 drives, I hadn't thrown a pass yet, and on the 9th straight run play, Richard Newton was locked up. Coach Sanders finally let me throw my first pass with 4 minutes left in the 2nd quarter, and it was an absolute beauty to Giles Jackson, who would make it a 47-yard gain. After that, the ball was out of my hands, but at least we scored, and when I finally had my chance to sling it, I dropped back and threw the ball 50 yards in the air to hit wide receiver Jalen McMillan in stride for a 91-yard touchdown. I found Giles Jackson with a minute left in the 3rd quarter, but he fell just short of the end zone. But fortunately, Richard Newton got in a few plays later. And even though Arizona scored, they didn't get the 2-point conversion, and we had a chance to end the game. So on 3rd and goal, I rolled out and found Jalen Polk to give us a 9-point lead. And this game would decide who makes the Pac-12 championship. So it was crucial that I came out and played well, and that's exactly what I did, finding Quentin Moore for my first 2 touchdowns. And then for my 3rd, I bombed the Ducks defense by hitting Thomas Collins in stride to take a 2-possession lead. I was playing on another level until I lobbed the ball up and prayed it would go well, but it didn't. So it was a close game, but I hit Giles Jackson on the deep post, and he would take it all the way down to the Oregon 5-yard line, and then I'd get us another 7 with this throw a few plays later. Unfortunately, our defense wasn't clutch, and after we couldn't pick up this 3rd down, it was the Ducks' ball. They scored a touchdown, so I had 90 seconds to lead us down the field. But on 4th and 9, Giles Jackson dropped what would have been an easy first down, and we lost to Oregon at home. So we missed out on the Pac-12 championship, but I still had a bowl game to play in. On 4th and 5, I found Jalen McMillan, who broke the tackle from the cornerback and took it 27 yards to the house. But on the next drive, Oklahoma State didn't fall for the play action, and I got sacked for a safety. With less than 30 seconds left in the half, I was determined to get us within 1 possession, and we ended up coming just short of reaching the end zone, so we settled for 3. To start the 3rd quarter, I drove us all the way down the field, and I finished off the drive by pitching it to Richard Newton. But with 3 minutes left in the game, we were down 7, so I was working it all the way down the field, and we were on the 9-yard line after I connected with Roma Dunze. On 3rd and goal, Giles Jackson dropped it, and on 4th and goal, the blitzer ran straight through my offensive line and chased me down before I could do anything. So the season ended on a bad note. We were playing at California, and they were a solid team, but they weren't that good. I was able to evade around the Golden Bear defense and run in for a 25-yard touchdown early in the game. On the next drive, my offensive line let California run a train on me, and I couldn't walk after, but I could stand in the pocket and deliver a dot. With about 90 seconds left before the half, somehow it was a tie game, so I let us down the field, but I did all that just to get railed again. Even though my team recovered the fumble, they continued to let me get run through by the whole California defensive line, and by midway through the 3rd quarter, I really needed my offensive line to learn how to block so I could sit back and lead us to victory. They actually did a decent job for a whole drive, and when it was a tie game, I rolled out and connected with Roma Dunze for 6. But after California went down and scored, I needed to continue to thrive, and that is what I did, finding Mark Redmond, who was amazing after the catch and fought his way all the way into the end zone. But once again, California scored to tie up the game, and I had 30 seconds to get my team in field goal range. I thought I had done that, but with 5 seconds left, they sent me out for a Hail Mary, so I threw it away. And then Coach called another Hail Mary instead of a field goal, so on the last play of the game, I rolled out, went to win the game, and I threw an interception. But it didn't even matter because on the first play overtime, I found Jalen McMillan in the end zone, so I needed my defense to get a stop on 4th and 7, and they got it. We survived against California. I would need to play perfectly in the Pac-12 championship to win the Heisman Trophy, and I was off to a solid start when I connected with my favorite receiving target on the team. At the beginning of the 2nd quarter, I threw the perfect pass on the run to put my team up 11, and after our defense forced a fumble, I threw a 20-yard touchdown to senior Roma Dunze. At the end of the 3rd quarter, I threw another dot, which was enough to get us a Pac-12 championship. But the most important game of my career was coming up, the national championship game versus Ohio State. I played in their home stadium just 4 years ago for the state championship, and now I had a chance to beat my home state team in the biggest game of my career where I was off to an amazing start. Midway through the 1st quarter, I was taking ankles left and right against the Buckeyes, and then later on that drive, I threw this 37-yard laser to wide receiver Jalen Polk, and we took an early 14-point lead. With 2 minutes left in the 1st half, I continued to sling the ball all over the Ohio State defense, and I threw for my 3rd touchdown. I couldn't believe it, but I was actually going to win a championship for Washington, and this is exactly why I didn't transfer at the beginning of my career. The reward of winning with the Huskies was way better than anything else, and it felt so good to celebrate the national championship title. If Todd Centeio could hold on to the ball, this would be a great start to the game, but he couldn't, so instead we went down 3 to Texas State. With about a minute left in the half, we were still losing, but that wouldn't be for long as Todd Centeio made an amazing play to find Chris Thornton in the end zone. However, Brady McBride led his team all the way down for 7 right after. That didn't matter though, as Devin Ravenel made this catch in the 3rd quarter and Kobe White made this catch in the 4th. With 4 minutes left in the game, it looked like we were actually going to win, but all of a sudden Calvin Hill was in the end zone and Todd Centeio wasn't able to get the ball out of his hands on 3rd down, so our fate was in the hands of our defense, and all we needed was a stop on 4th down, but Brady McBride had a million seconds in the pocket, and we gave up the big play. Luckily, we still had a chance to end it, but our corners had butterfingers, so they tied the game. With 5 seconds left, we were at the 40, so we took a quick slant, and kicker Camden Wise went for the win, but it was short, so it was time for overtime. And we gave up 7 like it was nothing. Then, Todd Centeio sat in the pocket like a deer in the road and put us in a bad position, so on 4th and 19, we had almost no chance of picking it up, and we didn't. We had collapsed in front of our fans. This was the best possible start we could have had as Todd Centeio connected with Kobe White on the opening drive. And then a few minutes later, he escaped the pressure and found freshman receiver Troy Lewis, but he couldn't hold on to it. To start the 2nd quarter, DJ Mack threw the ball straight to Devin Coles, and it seemed like everything was going our way. By the start of the 4th quarter, we still had a lead, but we needed to score, so that's exactly what we did, with Kobe White catching this touchdown pass with 4 minutes left in the game. But Old Dominion went down and got 7 immediately, so we needed to run out the clock, and then Todd Centeio did the most clueless thing ever. He gave the ball straight to the other team, and we were now losing. If any of the other QBs were any good, he would be subbed out immediately, but he was somehow the best we had, and then the game completely glitched. Somehow this incomplete pass turned into a fumble and a 10-yard loss. Nothing was going our way. Even Chris Thornton fumbled this ball, but luckily we picked it up and we took our lead back with 30 seconds left. So all we had to do was stop Old Dominion and our defense got it done. And if we beat Coastal Carolina, we would get back to being at 500 and our chances of making a bowl game would increase by a lot. But Mark Fuller started off with this throw straight to the other team, which turned into an easy 3. However, He wanted to redeem himself, so before you could blink, he let the ball fly, and Isaiah Kegley actually held onto it for a 65-yard touchdown. But at the end of the first quarter, Coastal Carolina took their lead back. A few minutes later, Mark Fuller found a wide open Troy Lewis for a touchdown, except he dropped it. So instead of going up 4, we went down 10. After Mark Fuller threw an interception, we gave up another touchdown, and we went into the half down 17. To start the third quarter, Mark Fuller was trying his hardest to get us back in the game, but it just resulted in another turnover. However, we got the ball right back when Grayson McCall threw it straight to senior Q Reed. In result of that turnover, Mark Fuller used his cannon to loft a perfectly thrown ball over the defense to Isaiah Kegley, and the turnaround he was having this season was incredible. I was super excited to see how much the freshman would continue to improve, and we started the fourth down just one possession. You could tell that the cornerbacks feared Kegley as they backed off of him now, but it was incredible that we were back in this game. We hadn't seen much of Latrell Palmer all season, but he was slowly getting more involved by taking this halfback screen all the way down to the 1-yard line. And then Mark Fuller ran it in to tie the game. With less than 2 minutes left, we were getting the ball back, and sophomore KJ White faked out 3 defenders, broke 1 tackle, broke 2 tackles, and it looked like he had space to take it all the way. The sophomore running back had pulled off the greatest punt return ever. However, our defense gave up a touchdown, so we had 15 seconds to get a field goal. Somehow freshman wide receiver Joe Whitmore would run right by the deep safety, and fortunately, Mark Fuller was able to see him, and he hit him in stride for the go-ahead touchdown. I couldn't believe we actually won, but we were playing 1-9 Georgia State, and we had to win this game if we wanted to make a bowl game. The good thing was that this would be senior Latrell Palmer's last game ever if we lost, so he was playing really well to keep his career alive, and he got us on the board early. But unfortunately, Georgia State responded back at the start of the second quarter, and with a minute left in the half, we found ourselves down 10, so we had to start scoring fast. And that is exactly what we did, getting into the end zone seconds later. By the end of the third quarter, we were still down by 3, and it was actually terrifying how inaccurate Mark Fuller was sometimes. I was hoping he would improve on that this offseason. Unfortunately, we fell behind 2 possessions on this play, but we weren't completely out of it yet. Mark Fuller threw this bomb to senior wide receiver Reggie Brown, and he took it all the way down to the Georgia State 9. Sean Rivero caught this touchdown on the next play, but we didn't recover the onside kick, so we had to stop Georgia State's running game. That is exactly what we were able to do, and then Georgia State missed this kick to take a 6-point lead, so we had 30 seconds left to get in field goal range, but instead, Mark Fuller went for all the glory and threw a bomb to Isaiah Kegley. He came down with it, and he ran into the end zone untouched, so we somehow had clinched a bowl game. We had the college football playoffs in sight, but that would only be possible with an undefeated season, and we had a good shot because our entire offense from last season was back. But we were taking on a 95 overall and a ranked Central Michigan team, so we would have to play perfectly if we wanted to start our season with a win. However, Central Michigan's offense was giving us all sorts of problems, and we weren't able to stop their running game. But Billy Atkins was slinging the rock to keep us in it. Junior receiver Leon Houghton Jr. turned on the Jets on this 40-yard touchdown, and he was single-handedly destroying Central Michigan's defense all throughout the second quarter with big play after big play. By the third, we were still moving the ball through our offensive stars, and Leon Houghton Jr. was able to catch his 3rd touchdown of the game. But a guy named Burt was keeping Central Michigan in it. This field goal gave us a 2-possession lead, but it didn't matter because the rain caused Sean Rivero to drop the ball, and Central Michigan took it all the way back to the house to take their lead back. So Billy Atkins had 2.5 minutes to go get us 7, and it looked like it was going to come down to the last play. I thought we were going to score here because Kadarius Sharper fought for an extra 5 yards, but since he fell short, Billy Atkins walked it in. And we took the lead on this extra point, so we left Central Michigan with a win. Even though he wasn't very fast, Billy Atkins was running the ball all over the Louisville defense from the start of the game. But he wasn't passing very accurately. This throw had no chance of ever leading to anything, and we were down 10 points before we could even blink. So you'd think Billy Atkins would get us back into it. Wrong. He threw this interception when Troy Lewis created 0 separation, and the Cardinal corner returned it all the way back to our own 30-yard line. After that, we became the unluckiest team in college football when Travion Cooley somehow broke these tackles and took it 30 yards to the house to put us down 17 points. Billy Atkins was single-handedly throwing the game and our season away, so I had to bring Mark Fuller in. And this is how the first drive went. 5 plays in, and he fully sent it, delivering a beautiful long ball to junior wide receiver Sean Rivero, and getting us on the board. Right before the half, Mark Fuller effortlessly led us all the way into field goal range, and we got the game within one possession. It had been a year since he played, but Mark Fuller was going off, and if we could escape with a win, I don't know how he wouldn't have earned the starting job. Just 2 weeks ago, Billy Atkins threw for 6 touchdowns, but I felt like his 3 interceptions were inexcusable, and he lucked out when Mark Fuller got hurt on this play. So Billy Atkins got to come in and deliver a dot. After Louisville went down and scored again, he would have a chance to lead us to the win, and with 30 seconds left, he thought he called game, and assuming we could hold on to our lead, he had. But Louisville got all the way down to our 25-yard line on this play, so they had a chance to win it, but fortunately, we knocked down the Cardinals' attempt, and we were 4-0. And if we won this game, we would finish the regular season undefeated, so we had to play well. But we found ourselves going down 7 midway through the first quarter, so we needed to straighten up. And when Antoine Booth II read the Georgia State quarterback like a book, he took this simple interception 85 yards to the house for the pick 6, and that one play changed the whole game for us. Billy Atkins was finally able to find his groove and start delivering dots all over the field, and because of that, we were able to take a 2-possession lead on the Panthers. Our defense came up clutch on this 4th down goal line stop, and we left the game 12-0. Our undefeated season had us in the top 4, but we would have to beat Southern Miss in the conference championship. Before that, I took a look at our season stats, and Leon Houghton Jr. had an incredible season so far. It was time for the Sun Belt Conference Championship, and Billy Atkins got us on the board early in the game with this throw. Leon Houghton Jr.'s catch gave him a school record at James Madison, and to start the second quarter, Billy Atkins ran it in. But unfortunately, with a minute left in the half, we fell behind 7 points to Southern Miss on this touchdown. The playoffs were so close, but we had to win this game, and Frank Gore Jr. was giving us all sorts of problems as he was running all over us, and we couldn't figure out how to stop him. Fortunately, Travis Hall ran this touchdown in at the beginning of the 4th quarter, and then a couple minutes later, our defense came up with a huge stop by forcing a fumble. With 2.5 minutes left in the game, we finally got the go-ahead touchdown on this Leon Houghton Jr. play, and then on 4th down, we locked up Frank Gore Jr. with ease, so we won our 2nd straight Sun Belt championship. But it was time for the first round of the college football playoffs against undefeated Georgia. We actually got on the board first, but Georgia's Brock Vandegrift led them down the field to respond back with this touchdown play a couple minutes later. And by the end of the half, unfortunately, it wasn't looking good for us. On this play, midway through the 3rd quarter, Billy Atkins ended up getting hurt while being sacked, so Mark Fuller came into the game and he scrambled outside the pocket. He took off and dove for the end zone, but he was short, and on 4th and goal, KJ White got lit up on the pitch. By the 4th quarter, senior Billy Atkins was back in the game delivering dots, and we could have gotten the ball back on this play, but Antonio Webb couldn't hold on to it, so we were not in a good position. And our season officially came to an end on this play. We fought our hardest all year just to come up short, so we started the season playing at Alabama, and our defense gave up a touchdown on the opening drive of the game. Mark Fuller also started his senior year playing like a blind quarterback, but it didn't matter because he tied up the game a couple minutes later. Near the end of the 2nd quarter, the Crimson Tide went back up 7, so Mark Fuller needed to get us some points before the half. And on the next play, he found senior All-American wide receiver Leon Houghton Jr. for the 49-yard touchdown catch. It felt like our receiving core had been the same for years now, and to be fair, it had, but since they were all seniors, this was it for them. The only new starter on our offense was junior running back Travis Hall, and he tied the game up for us by using his speed to get to the outside. After our defense got a huge stop, all we needed to do to beat Alabama was get into field goal range and settle for 3, and that was enough to pull off the upset at Bryant-Denny Stadium. Despite being off to a bad start, our defense was locking up the Southern Miss offense, but we had 0 points at the end of the 1st quarter. And senior quarterback Mark Fuller continued to disappoint with terrible reads like this one. We wouldn't be the first top 10 team to struggle against a Sun Belt opponent, and our offense wasn't able to get anything going at the end of the half. It was clear we were playing like the worst team in the nation, and it didn't get any better for us in the 3rd quarter. We weren't taking Southern Miss seriously because of our recent success, and it was going to be hard to come back, but fortunately, Leon Houghton Jr. created a ton of separation to start the 4th quarter, and we were right back in it. However, we needed to get a big stop on 4th and 6 against the Golden Eagles, but instead, they turned it into a touchdown. And they even got the 2-point conversion, but right after, tight end Kadarius Sharper got multiple big plays on the Southern Miss defense to move us down the field. And Mark Fuller and Isaiah Kegley hooked up in the end zone with plenty of time left on the clock. After a clutch defensive stop, we had less than a minute to score the game-tying touchdown, but Southern Miss got a sack on this play, leaving us with 17 seconds and no timeouts. The game was going to come down to the last play as Sean Rivera got stopped on the goal line, and then Joe Whitmore made the biggest catch of his career but we decided to go for the win. And Kadarius Sharper was the hero we needed to save the day, so we avoided the upset. We were looking to go into their house and pile onto that misery. We took an early 14-point lead on the Mountaineers when Lean Houghton Jr. toasted their defense for a 42-yard touchdown, but by the end of the half, they worked it all the way down the field and made it a 5-point game. Mark Fuller jumped into the end zone here, but we didn't give Appalachian State that good D, so they were able to make it a one-possession game on this 12-yard run. However, that didn't stop Mark Fuller from coming out and delivering a beautiful dot to Chris Lewis with 3 minutes left in the game, but once again, our D wasn't good enough, and senior quarterback Davis Lane Jr. put the Mountaineers right back in it. On third down, Appalachian State stopped us from running out the clock, so we punted it back to them, but right when it looked like we were going to give up our lead, our defense came up clutch, and we escaped again. In our matchup, we were taking on undefeated Western Kentucky. They were the first team on the board, but their lead only lasted minutes as we immediately responded right back. At the beginning of the second quarter, we increased our lead to 11, and the Hilltoppers couldn't figure out how to stop our upbeat offense. Midway through the third quarter, Western Kentucky got right back into the game, but then Mark Fuller took over. He scrambled to the outside and let a dot fly into the back of the end zone, which was enough to secure us the win. So we were headed to the national championship game, and it all came down to this. Travis Hall was able to find the open hole and get us into the end zone on our first drive, and Joe Whitmore created 5 feet of separation to get himself a memorable catch. We were able to end the first half the best way possible as Travis Hall ran it in. And this game was honestly never even close. Even without Mark Fuller in the fourth quarter, we were able to comfortably run out the clock and win the game because Travis Hall was playing out of his mind. So we had finally done it. The ACC championship featured both of the new schools to the conference, and we started the game giving up a touchdown. But Adam McNeil responded right back with this mini dot, and then on our next drive, he broke this sack and used his legs to scramble and extend his arms all the way out for the end zone. Our defense came up clutch with this massive stop on 4th and 6, but they gave up the game-tying touchdown at the end of the half. We were struggling to stop the Notre Dame passing attack as they took the lead on this 14-yard pass midway through the third. And then the Irish held our offense scoreless throughout the whole quarter and started off the fourth with another touchdown throw. We were able to get the game within one possession with this touchdown, but we still needed to get a stop on defense to get the ball back. And that is exactly what we were able to do. Strong safety Mike Silva came up with the massive interception, and then it happened. Donnie Holmes took this pass 19 yards to the house to tie up the game with 18 seconds left. So it was time for overtime in the ACC championship, and we needed to get a stop. But we weren't able to do that as Notre Dame scored easily by running just 2 plays on us, and then Chris Lewis didn't put his hands up to catch the ball, which meant the Irish had a free interception, so we lost the ACC championship. We were playing an undefeated Clemson, and we got on the board first when Adam McNeil threw a beautifully lofted ball to sophomore wide receiver Donnie Holmes. However, to open up the second quarter, Clemson quarterback Dan Carey tied the game right back up. The good news was we had an insane receiving core with everybody always getting wide open, and so this year we no longer had to rely on the running attack like we did last season, and we went into the half up 4. But Adam McNeil started the third quarter with a terrible read, and he turned the ball over to the Tigers. Fortunately, even though he was only half the man that Travis Hall was for us last season, Buster Smith was able to outrun the entire Clemson defense on this 49-yard halfback screen. After scoring a touchdown, the Tigers also got the 2-point conversion, so it was only a 3-point game, and this one was going to come down to the wire. Well, I thought it would, but Adam McNeil was built different, delivering a perfectly thrown deep ball to Kevin Clark for the 55-yard touchdown. However, once again, we didn't give Dan Carey that good D, and he got the game within one possession. It didn't matter though, because Buster Smith was in control, running down the clock, and we left Death Valley with the win. We'd make the conference championship, and that would probably put us in the playoffs as well, but we had to stop Michael Jackson first. He was giving our defense all sorts of problems early on, but after a big fumble and this run, it was a tie game. That didn't last long. Adam McNeil made one of the worst reads ever, and Virginia Tech would take it all the way to the house to take a 7-point lead. And I don't know what happened to him, but he was no longer playing like a Heisman candidate, and we were struggling badly. We fell behind 2 possessions to the Hokies, but then our offense woke up. Donnie Holmes caught this touchdown pass, and Buster Smith had his biggest run of the season. He wasn't quite fast enough to finish off the play, but he got all the way down to the Virginia Tech 15. But on 4th and 10, Adam McNeil couldn't find an open receiver, and he took the sack instead. It was a good thing we had an amazing defense, which put us in the position to tie up the game, and then once again, we gave them that good D and forced another stop. So all we needed to do was get in field goal range, and then Adam McNeil did it again. The Heisman race was not something he'd be a part of, and even though we got this stop on 3rd down against the Hokies, they kicked the go-ahead field goal against us. But we weren't out of it yet. Adam McNeil delivered this dot on the first play of the drive, and then we got the miracle we needed. The man that was supposed to be on running back Buster Smith got mixed up and ended up leaving him wide open. We took the lead on this huge play, and I couldn't believe that we escaped with a win. We were playing #1 Army to end the regular season, and if we wanted to make the playoffs, this was a must-win game for us. But our first offensive snap definitely didn't go as planned, with Adam McNeil fumbling it away. It didn't matter though, because we recovered it, and then Donnie Holmes showed us why he was our #1 receiver, turning a short pass into a massive play for our offense. Once again, Adam McNeil couldn't hold on to the ball, and he dropped it into the snow, and he wasn't the only one playing bad, with our receiver struggling to catch the ball. But we finally cracked the Army defense when Brian Meeks made this incredible catch to put us on the board. However, our lead didn't last long, as the Black Knights responded right back with this run. Even though he wasn't open, Adam McNeil slung it to Kevin Clark in the end zone, and at the half, it was a tie game. In the third, we had a chance to take the lead, but instead, Adam McNeil fumbled the ball away again, and he struggled to get up after that play. So sophomore Johnny Chambers had to finish it off for us, and keep in mind, the college football playoffs were on the line, so we had to win this game. And the only way I knew we could guarantee a win was going back to the running game like last season. And boys, it was working just how I was hoping it would. It wasn't pretty, but we were going to beat the #1 team in the country on the road. It was time for our semifinal matchup, and I couldn't believe what I witnessed on this play. Wide receiver Donnie Holmes took the pitch, made a man miss, and fought hard all the way into the end zone. We were on a roll early against the Buckeyes, and it was all because of Donnie Holmes. He was only a sophomore, but he was playing like this could be his last game ever, with catches like this, and with this touchdown from Buster Smith off the screenplay, we extended our lead to 21. It took them almost 2 full quarters, but Ohio State finally cracked our defense and got into the end zone, and then to end the half, they got the game within 1 possession on this laser of a throw. By the end of the third quarter, it was a tie game, and we needed to score as soon as possible. And all we were able to do was get a field goal. The Buckeyes tied it right back up, but we had the ball with a minute left in the game, so we controlled our destiny. And with this throw here, we were pretty much in field goal range. In the end, we kicked the game winner, so we made the national championship again, and it would be a rematch against Army. It had been a long 7 years, but this would be the last game of the James Madison series, and there's nothing that would be better than ending it with a win. Kevin Clark started the national championship with 2 touchdown catches, and our defense was playing pretty well. To end the first half, Adam McNeil threw it up, and Kevin Clark made an acrobatic catch to come down with it. And he was having one of the best national championship games ever, catching another touchdown pass in the third quarter. Our defense got this clutch stop on 4th and 2, which helped us seal the game, and we would win our 2nd national championship in school history. We were hosting Michigan, and for some reason we were both wearing white, but that didn't matter because I caught my first collegiate touchdown ever. The colors were really messing with the Michigan defense, and I surprisingly caught another touchdown, making a 42-yard play and boosting my confidence. But unfortunately, I didn't get in at the end of the game, and I watched Steve Marca and our offense lose to Michigan. And this was my first time getting a lot of wideout playing time in a game. Surprisingly, I wasn't targeted until there were 2 minutes left in the second quarter, but then from there, Steve Marca and I started to connect on a lot more passes, like this 35-yard touchdown. However, he threw this dumb pass that I promise I didn't call for, and Northwestern would pick him off. He was throwing a ton of interceptions, so after he threw his third, I had to make him look good again so he could keep his starting job, and taking this 73-yard touchdown to the house untouched would do just that. Then I made this play to get us in field goal range, and we picked up our 8th win of the year. I finally won player of the game, and we were playing our bowl game against number 12 Oklahoma. I'd love to win the Cotton Bowl in my first year as a Spartan, but we were down early, and I could have caught a touchdown pass here, but me and Steve failed to hook up. Fortunately, we got into the end zone before the end of the half, and at the end of the third quarter, I caught my first touchdown of the game on this little slant. But we were down 14 on 4th and 26, so I knew it was over, and we would come up short against Oklahoma in the Cotton Bowl. I couldn't hold on to the ball on the first play of the season, so Mel Tucker had me blocking on the next play instead. I didn't even get back into the game until the third quarter, and fortunately by the fourth I was able to make my first catch of the season against Arkansas. That allowed me to get a lot more comfortable holding on tight to the balls, and with 4 minutes left in the game we went up 3 on the Razorbacks. But they were able to take their lead back, so we had a short amount of time to score again, and with 15 seconds left, thankfully we got into the end zone, so we escaped with a win. It was my dream to play at Autzen Stadium, and that's when I knew I had made it. I was starting to get more targets as the second wide receiver, and after this play where I broke a tackle from a massive safety, I was getting confident. With less than a minute left in the first half, I finally had my opportunity, and with a perfect block and my speed, there was nobody touching me on the 61-yard touchdown. I'd follow that up with another breakaway play as well. Steve Marca led me perfectly with this pass, and I was able to make it 44 yards into the end zone. With 48 seconds left in the game, our defense failed to get a stop on 4th and 4 against the Ducks, and we had one more chance to take a last-second lead, but we were not able to get it. So it was time for overtime, and it wasn't going to be easy to beat Oregon on the road, but after our defense got a clutch stop, kicker Jack Stone put the game away. And I knew I was a main reason we won. If I played well against Eastern Michigan, I could move up to wide receiver 1, but after I failed to make this catch, I was ticked. At the end of the day, I would completely forget about that mistake because I toasted the Eagles defense and took it all the way to the house for a 77-yard touchdown. That wouldn't be the only time I'd find the back of the end zone either, with this easy 26-yard catch, and then I'd do it again for exactly 26 yards, hauling it in and putting us up 18. I might not survive the Big Ten, but Eastern Michigan was cake, and I even set the school record for receiving touchdowns in a game. Additionally, I even put up an extra touchdown at the end of the game just for bragging rights, and that helped my high school buddy also get in the school record books. I was definitely the player of the game, and I had to play against number 8 Penn State in the battle of the undefeateds. I started off with a foot race against the Penn State defender, beating him out and reeling in a 40-yard touchdown catch. And me and Steve Merker were hooking up over and over. Our high school connection had transitioned perfectly to college, and I already had 2 touchdowns by the end of the first quarter. By the second half, Steve Merker started to struggle, throwing his 3rd interception of the game, and then Drew Aller put us down by 3. We had a minute left to tie it up, and I made this catch to get us to midfield and give us a good chance. From there, we went on to score a touchdown with 35 seconds left, but somehow Penn State scored, and we lost our first game of the year. And the following week, we hosted Iowa with the chance of improving to 6-1. I was established as our main receiver at this point in the year, and we needed to win out if I wanted any chance of winning the Big Ten and making the playoffs. I felt like it was possible, and after I made the play of the game, breaking a tackle and outrunning the Iowa defense to score a 70-yard touchdown, we were in a good position, and there was no stopping me. It was rivalry week, and I was ready to go into the big house and make a statement showing everybody that the Spartans were better. By midway through the second quarter, Michigan had a 4-point lead, but I was able to put us up by a few points with this catch. However, by the fourth quarter, even though I was playing out of my mind, we were still trailing the Wolverines. After our defense got a clutch stop, I took off, got wide open, and got my team all the way down to inside the Michigan 5-yard line while setting the school season record for receiving yards. From there, we would get into the end zone, but the Wolverines would score another touchdown. So once again, the game was in my hands on 4th and 4, where I took this simple slant 69 yards to the house with nobody coming close to catching me. But all I could do was watch from the sidelines as our defense collapsed in the final seconds. And I tried to run a quick out route to get us in field goal range, but Steve Merker threw it deep instead, and we fell short in the end. I hated seeing JJ McCarthy so happy. Even Scott Frost was doing a better job with Nebraska than whoever the coach is now. I couldn't believe they were 1-9, making this a great opportunity to pad my stats and hopefully win the Heisman Trophy. I couldn't have asked for better throws either from Steve Merka, as he was putting it exactly where I asked him to. Playing with my high school quarterback in college was great, as we ended up breaking loads of records together. I ended up getting into the end zone for the first time of the day on this ridiculously nasty route, but by the third quarter, we were actually struggling to score on Nebraska. It looked like we were going to lose to a 1-9 team until I got open like I always do, taking it 75 yards to the house and solidifying my spot as one of the best in the country. With a minute left, we had a chance to go up on 3rd and goal, but Steve couldn't get it out, so we had to tie it up instead. Then, in overtime, I tried to get open, but it almost resulted in a game-ending pick 6. We ended up only getting 3, and I had to watch from the sidelines as we lost to Nebraska at home. If I had a good day today, I was almost guaranteed to win the Heisman Trophy, but I wasn't playing well for once with the ball nailing me in the head. However, by midway through the third quarter, I was able to finally get on track, walking into the Minnesota end zone untouched. But then, the unluckiest injury ever happened as I hyperextended my knee on the back of my teammate and bruised my MCL, and that would put me out for the rest of the season. My team started off down 7 when I traveled to play at Western Michigan, and Steve Merck and I weren't hooking up well today at all. It was honestly shocking how much our chemistry had fallen off, but we finally connected midway through the second quarter, and from there, we would start to really move the ball. I felt like I was getting back into a consistent rhythm, but we were still down by 8. In the third quarter, we failed to tie up the game. However, you could tell there was a massive shift in momentum until Steve Merker tried to hit me in the back of the end zone, and instead he underthrew it, turning it over. And on our next possession, we just weren't on the same page, so once again, he threw another interception. How was I supposed to reach my season goals with us playing like this? It wasn't looking good until I got into the end zone for the first time this season. And even though we didn't get the 2-point conversion, we had the ball with 45 seconds left in the game. And then Steve Merck and I made a much needed play, getting us all the way down to the other side of the field. So I got to watch from the sidelines as our kicker nailed the winner and we escaped the huge upset. I wanted to give the kids that were watching from the hospital an amazing performance today because I knew they weren't used to seeing a good offense, and if I wanted to actually win the Heisman, I would really need to step up my game. I hadn't had a bad season so far, but I certainly wasn't on pace to match my stats from last year, and the good thing was I already had 2 touchdowns before the end of the first quarter. On one of the last plays of the half, I snuck by the defense for my 3rd score of the day, but surprisingly, it was a very close game. So with less than 2 minutes left, we had to go down the field on the Hawkeyes and figure out how to break the tie. I continued to help us move the ball by finding all the open spots in the defense, which led to us getting into the end zone here and leaving Iowa with another win. Hopefully, a tunnel fight wouldn't happen again, but I wasn't promising anything. I wouldn't be opposed to jumping JJ McCarthy if we couldn't pull off this rivalry win, and you could tell there was a lot of hate with deadly hits like this. But that wouldn't stop me from scoring a couple of plays later. It just meant way too much to me to lose to Michigan after last year, so I was doing everything I could to put us on top. And honestly, the Wolverines weren't doing a very good job at stopping me. I was already well over 100 receiving yards just midway through the second quarter, but by the third, we weren't scoring and we found ourselves down by 10. Thankfully, we got within 1 possession, so we weren't completely out of it. And with 3 minutes left, we were able to tie it up. But right after, Michigan went down and scored, so I had to respond back. And that's when I made the miracle play, taking it 75 yards to the house untouched. Again though, our defense stunk, so we needed to get back on the board in less than a minute. And I did it once again, making a huge play for my team and getting into the end zone with just 22 seconds left, which even led to me breaking my own school record. In overtime, if we scored a touchdown on this possession, we would survive, and I made that game-winning catch. There wasn't anything that felt better than this. This was the best possible start we could have had against number 13 Ohio State, as I took one of our first plays 77 yards around their defense and into the back of the end zone in front of our home crowd. And this was going to be my Heisman performance, as I wasn't dropping the ball. I'm not quite sure how I did it, but somehow I continued to beat their defense over the top, and that led to another 50 receiving yards. By midway through the third quarter, it was a tie game at 10, and after we went down by 7, I had to make sure I took over. It was hard trying to single-handedly carry a team to an undefeated season, but this laser from Steve Merca to me would help us tie up the game. However, with 33 seconds left on 4th down, I failed to make this catch against the Buckeyes, so even though I played one of my best games yet, we lost for the first time this year. But I couldn't believe who my first opponent was, and it was honestly just not a good start for me at Alabama. I think I was just a little shocked that Nick Saban scheduled my former team, and I was not expecting to be down by 28 points to them. They say the grass isn't always greener on the other side, and they might actually be right about that. All of a sudden, I was watching my career unfold and fail in the worst of ways, but then it hit me. If I was the reason that this Alabama offense actually started moving the ball and winning games, my draft stock would skyrocket. Number 2, Texas A&M was going to be hard to beat at home, but I was off to an amazing start with this easy touchdown grab. And that was not the end of my success. With a minute left in the first quarter, Jalen Milroe led me perfectly with a beautiful pass, and I ended up fighting my way into the end zone. Whoever number 31 was no longer had a scholarship after this game because I was making him look like a fool over and over. And I legitimately can't think of a time when he stopped me. Midway through the third quarter, I was approaching 200 receiving yards, and this was my breakout game that would make the country remember my name because NFL scouts were definitely watching this top 6 matchup. Surely one of them would take a shot on a 5'5" receiver, but obviously there was still a long season to get through before I'd find out if I could make the NFL. And I was going to make sure that we escaped College Game Day with a win over number 2 Texas A&M. I wasn't quite sure why Nick Saban was still calling passing plays, but it ended up getting me an Alabama record, and even though we choked our lead and only had 30 seconds left, I made sure that we didn't lose the game in the end with this 50-yard shocker to the Aggies. And I was going to make sure Alabama actually won at Neyland Stadium this time. I already had 2 catches for 45 yards on our first drive, but I wouldn't get targeted again until midway through the second quarter when I burned the Tennessee cornerback for a massive 57-yard gain. I'm not sure what it was with me and making big plays, but you could call me Jamar Chase the way I was able to simply run straight and score a 53-yard touchdown. With a few minutes left, we had a great lead, but then Jalen Milroe threw threw it straight to the Volunteer defense, and they'd end up taking it back to make it a one-possession game, and he was selling as he couldn't make an accurate throw. With 3 minutes left, he did it again, throwing another interception which also turned into a pick six, making it 28-28. Then he fumbled it away with 2.5 minutes left, so Tennessee took a lead, but their kicker missed the extra point, which gave us a chance to go down the field and score on them. I ended up making the game-winning catch, so once again we survived because of me, and I opened up our game at Mississippi State with a nice catch. But after that, they started pounding me. I don't know why they were railing me so hard, but I couldn't hold on to it, so I made sure to bounce back as soon as I could. However, even though I was doing well by scoring a lot, my team's defense wasn't, so I knew that I would have to step up my game even more than I already had just to keep us in it. And by halftime, I had 3 touchdown catches on the Bulldogs. I continued to dominate in the third quarter, getting my team down to the 1 and watching them run it in. But if you thought I'd stop there, you'd be wrong. My team's defense literally wasn't doing a thing, so I had to continue to make massive plays to keep us in the game. And I had so much relief when this touchdown put us up by 4. We escaped with another win, and I was practically unstoppable. I couldn't believe I was playing against Vanderbilt in the SEC championship, but I'd assume they have a great head coach. However, he couldn't have been too good because he didn't have a game plan to stop me, and I was doing whatever I wanted on offense. But somehow, with a minute left in the first half, we were trailing the Commodores, and I was pulling every route out of my book that I knew, trying to get my team in the end zone. But I failed to make a simple catch, so I was starting to get really frustrated about our situation. Going into the fourth, we were down by 4, and that's when I decided it was time to take over. I got wide open on this corner route and got my team all the way down inside the red zone, but unfortunately, it didn't result in a score. However, with a minute left, we took a 3-point lead, and after our defense got a clutch stop, we became SEC Conference champions. But it was time for my last collegiate game ever, and I was playing in the national championship game against undefeated Syracuse. This remarkable 59-yard touchdown play would put my team up by 10 early on, and I set another NCAA record at the same time. The whole reason I transferred to Alabama was to elevate my career, and I felt like I had done that. Surprisingly, my worst performance of the year was the championship game, but I had achieved everything I ever wanted.
And on the third play of the game, true freshman QB Derek Summers outran our whole defense and scored a 57-yard touchdown. However, we responded right back with a touchdown of our own, and on the next drive, Mike Wright scrambled out of the pocket. He was trying to pick up the first down, and he got leveled and lost the ball. Shortly after that, their running back destroyed one of our corners. They were bullying us in our own stadium, but we had a chance to tie the game before the half, and we would have if freshman receiver Brian Canary could catch, but he can't, so we settled for 3. Nearing the end of the third quarter, we were down 11 until Mike Wright found Will Shepard with this beautiful, beautiful deep ball, and after holding Western Kentucky to 3, we had a chance to tie up the game, and we did so on this beautiful dot to running back Ramen Davis. With 20 seconds left, we set up to kick the game-winning field goal, and as time expired, freshman kicker Joe Samuel got us the win. Our defense gave up an easy touchdown on Tennessee's first drive, and our offense wasn't able to find the back of the end zone until late in the second quarter. Despite that, we were only down 3 at the start of the second half, and we were able to tie the game up a couple minutes later. Midway through the third, we pulled off some trickery, and we took the lead over our rivals. However, the Volunteers tied the game up with 4 minutes left in the fourth. After Tennessee drove down the field and kicked 3, Mike Wright came out on the first play, and he found Devin Bodie Jr. for a 76-yard touchdown. Fortunately, our defense did its job after that, and we were able to force Joe Milton to fumble in the final seconds. And Middle Tennessee State was the perfect opponent for that, until Criswell completely missed James Parker and turned it over on the first play. And then when we had them locked up in the backfield on 4th and 1, Frank Peasant broke all 3 of these tackles to somehow score. Late in the first quarter, on 3rd and 18, nobody was open, so Jacoby Criswell rolled out, and he threw a deep bomb to receiver James Rutledge, which gave us a 4-point lead. It was honestly remarkable how easily Criswell could loft the ball in the air and hit our receivers in stride, as we hit Will Shepard for a deep touchdown as well. And despite the Blue Raiders' effort to stay in the game, Criswell was on fire, and we went into halftime with an 11-point lead. Midway through the fourth, we had a 7-point lead, but Criswell wasn't done, throwing for his 6th touchdown of the game. But I couldn't believe Middle Tennessee State was able to stay in the game by scoring a touchdown right here. They really weren't giving up, but all we had to do was run out the clock. And so I did something stupid and tried to throw a simple pass out of Wildcat, just to have some fun, but I shouldn't have done that with the game on the line as we turned it over. Anyway, our corner Josh Fletcher had an easy chance to end it, but he couldn't hold on to the ball. And then Javon Reed made this contested catch on us that should have never happened. So of course, after we had got them all the way to 4th down, they scored, and we had actually choked. until, all of a sudden, our stud kick returner James Parker broke free and he went the distance to save the day for us. We were going to survive. It wasn't pretty, but a win's a win. And it started just like you'd expect, a Bulldog touchdown. And after they had scored another, Brian Canary decided that he had had enough and he stepped up to keep us in the game. However, Georgia went right down and they scored again. Our offense hadn't been great, but we couldn't get a stop if our life depended on it. Then Georgia ended up getting one of the wildest interceptions I'd ever seen. I challenged it, and despite the ball being on the ground before he ever caught it, they didn't overturn the interception call. And after that play, something changed. I'm not sure what, but the team started playing way better, and Criswell threw this amazing deep ball. On the next play, he found Justin Ball in the end zone for the touchdown, and midway through the third, Justin Ball caught another touchdown by outrunning the whole Georgia defense, but we were still down 17, so we went for the 2-point conversion and got it. And then we threw this jump ball up, which should have been an interception, but Will Shepard somehow came down with it, and he took it all the way to the house. Going into the fourth, we were right back in it, so we threw another dot to Will Shepard, and Patrick Smith walked it into the end zone to tie the game. And then it happened. While threatening to score, somehow Vandergrift threw a pick to us, and we took that ball all the way down to the other side of the field. From there, we ran out all the clock, and Joe Samuel got us our biggest win in program history. Scott Gandy and I were ready to lead the Commodores to their best season yet. The freshman QB had the best arm I had ever seen, but after we got stopped at midfield, Michigan ran the ball down our throats and they got on the board first. However, Scott Gandy responded right back, finding freshman wide receiver Brian Lumpkin for 6. He was another new face on our offense, and we were actually playing so well that we took an early lead on Michigan with this Patrick Smith touchdown. I was very happy with how we had played in the first half, and by the end of the third quarter, Joe Samuel was putting us back up 4. But unfortunately, J.J. McCarthy gave the Wolverines the lead right after that. On the next drive, freshman Scott Gandy was able to find James Rutledge on the wheel route, and that put Vanderbilt back on top. That didn't stop Michigan from working their way right back into the end zone, but we had 40 seconds and a dream of beating Michigan at the Big House. Unfortunately, the freshman side of Scott Gandy came out when we needed him the most, and we fell 3 points short of upsetting the Wolverines. Against South Carolina, Scott Gandy was able to find Quincy Skinner Jr. at the start of the second quarter for this touchdown, and then on the next drive, he threaded the needle to find Quincy Skinner Jr. again. We had an 8-point lead going into the half, but near the end of the third quarter, we found ourselves down by 3, and even though we moved the ball pretty well until this third down play, we had to settle for a 54-yard field goal with Joe Samuel. But with 2 minutes left, the Gamecocks went up 3, and then the stupidest play ever happened. James Parker fumbled the kickoff, it went back into the end zone, and Patrick Smith jumped on it. We had just given up the worst safety ever, but we were able to stop South Carolina's rushing game, so we still had 50 seconds and a dream. Scott Gandy started off the drive by finding Brian Lumpkin, and with 15 seconds left in the game, we were all the way down to the 1, so being the freshman he is and not understanding clock management, Scott Gandy yelled at everybody for a bit, then he had nobody open, he took the sack, and we lost the game. But it was raining, we were on the road, and we were playing our rivals, so we knew a win wouldn't come easily. However, when you have one of the best quarterbacks and wide receivers in the nation, you're able to dominate games like that. Right before halftime, Scott Gandy found Brian Canary on the dig route, and we went up 17 on the Rebels. And to open the second half, sophomore receiver Brian Lumpkin caught his first touchdown of the season, but with 2 minutes left in the third quarter, Ole Miss quarterback Dane Nash threw a dot and cut our lead to 12. And before you could blink, Ole Miss was within a touchdown. Our offense couldn't get anything going, our defense couldn't get a stop if their lives depended on it, and we had choked a 27-3 lead. We were almost on the Falcons level, but fortunately for us, we had Scott Gandy, not Matt Ryan. Somehow our 59 speed star became prime Lamar Jackson, and he got us into field goal range with this run. On the next play, while trying to center up a game-winning field goal for us, Patrick Smith broke this huge run, and even though they iced us, senior kicker Joe Samuel won us the game as time expired. We had a chance to climb into the top 10 if we could beat Georgia at home, and on our first drive, the halfback screen created a wide-open Patrick Smith, and we were on the board early. I don't want to talk about how it became 3rd and 34, but it didn't matter because Mike Johnson was able to find James Parker over the top, and offensive coordinator Bill O'Brien was loving his new versatile weapon he had at quarterback. Even though we went up 14 early, we couldn't get complacent against Kirby Smart and the Bulldogs, and on the kickoff return, senior receiver and kick return specialist James Parker wanted to make his mark on the game. That's exactly what he did with his 77-yard return, and by halftime, we were up 10. Georgia came out and scored on their first drive, and we needed to come back with a response against the Bulldogs, but while trying to make a play, Mike Johnson got rocked, and he fumbled the drive away. We passed up on a field goal to run this fake, and Mike Johnson was able to find backup running back Dylan Betts-Pauley to put us up 10, and just when I thought Tyson Russell was going to end the game with this interception, he missed the ball, and Georgia was in a prime position to score. On the next play, Robert Bentley hit us with the option, and he scrambled in to make the game a close one. After the Bulldogs put Mike Johnson and the Commodore offense in a box, we needed our defense to come up with a big stop, but they used the same play we opened the game with, hitting us with the halfback screen, and that got them all the way down to the 2. And then Robert Bentley finished the job. Once again, the ball was in Mike Johnson's hand, and he had the chance to prove to the world that he was clutch. We had worked our way all the way down to the 3-yard line, and we pulled the unexpected by running the ball, which put us up with 5 seconds left. We went down 7 early in the SEC championship, and our freshman QB was incredibly nervous, but I continued to encourage him. He hit Brian Lumpkin on the slant, who turned on the burners and ran for a 46-yard touchdown. And with about 5 minutes left in the second quarter, Johnson and Parker made an incredible play to give us the lead. On the next drive, Missouri didn't get any pressure, which led to another Lumpkin touchdown on a broken play, and we were playing the best football we had ever played. Backup QB Quentin Brown even got minutes in the fourth quarter, and we ended up winning our first SEC championship. The college football playoff semifinals were off to a bad start when Heisman winner Will Taylor put Clemson up early, but Mike Johnson responded right back. And this was unfamiliar territory for the Vanderbilt football program, but we still had a chance to make program history, and star running back Patrick Smith was running like a madman in his last game ever. We ended up taking a 4-point lead midway through the second quarter, but we couldn't stop the best number 16 to ever play quarterback for Clemson, and the Tiger defense was giving Mike Johnson all sorts of problems. We went into the half down 6, but in the third quarter, Wesley Smith made a huge play picking off the Heisman winner. Unfortunately, we weren't able to do anything on offense, and on 3rd and 1, we needed a stop so bad, but we couldn't get it. However, our goal line defense completely locked up, stopping Will Taylor multiple times and forcing them to take 3. Mike Johnson played well above expectations this year, but he also made freshman mistakes that really hurt our chances of winning, and after Clemson ran the option to perfection, we found ourselves down 15. They went for the 2-point conversion to put us out of reach, and they got it. Unfortunately, our great run was over.
We were opening up the year at number 1 Clemson and trying to get our revenge against the Tigers. Redshirted junior Nathan Ballard was our new starting running back, and he was a speedster. Freshman kicker Terrence Carpenter got us on the board, and a few minutes later, Xavier Johnson put us up 10. The sophomore was our wide receiver 4, but he was playing like our wide receiver 1 as he pulled off this crazy move, and he used his speed to take it all the way to the house. Unfortunately, Aaron Richards ruined the touchdown, and then on the next play, Mike Johnson made one of the worst reads I've ever seen, giving Clemson a chance to get right back into the game. And all of a sudden, going into the half, we were in a close battle against the Tigers. Nearing the end of the third quarter, it was a tie game, and we were just trying to take our lead back. Fortunately, we were able to do so, and our defense was able to hold the Tigers to 3 despite them getting near the red zone. Mike Johnson hadn't played well, but he changed the game by rolling out and hitting wide receiver James Rutledge on this deep post for a 67-yard touchdown that put us up 11, but that didn't stop Clemson from scoring just a minute later, and then they stopped us on our attempt to run out the clock. So with less than a minute left in the game, Clemson was able to take the lead, and we were in trouble, but that didn't faze Mike Johnson, who connected with James Rutledge on this big play, and then it happened. Xavier Johnson beat his man, and we took the lead with 7 seconds left. I couldn't believe we pulled off the win. The SEC championship was set, and whichever quarterback performed better today would most likely walk away with the Heisman Trophy. After the Aggies scored first, Mike Johnson tied the game before the end of the first quarter, and 90 seconds before halftime, Nathan Ballard walked into the end zone. But Texas A&M tied the game on this play, making sure that they weren't going to go into the third quarter with a disadvantage, and all of a sudden we went from up 7 on the Aggies to down 7. When trying to move the ball down the field and tie the game, Nathan Ballard couldn't hold on to it, and that turnover led to Texas A&M taking a 2-possession lead in the fourth quarter. But Mike Johnson wanted to get right back into it, so he found wide receiver Xavier Johnson in the end zone. On third down, we had to get a stop, but we weren't able to do so, and we were in a lot of trouble. However, we still had a chance, but we just couldn't stop senior running back Joe McCormick, and we lost the SEC championship. The national championship was set, and the good news was that we knew we could beat the Aggies. Mike Johnson hooked up with James Rutledge to give us an early lead, and Marcus Jenkins and Texas A&M tried to match our 7, but instead, Dan Brewer picked him off, and then Nathan Ballard was able to walk right into the end zone. With 2 minutes left in the second, the Aggies got right back into it, and it was a 4-point game at the half. To start the third quarter, Mike Johnson threw a horrible interception, and that turned into another Texas A&M touchdown. However, Mike Johnson decided he was going to step up and cement his legacy as a Commodore by finding James Rutledge with this dot. And then on our next drive, he threw another touchdown while setting the school record for passing yards in a season. With 2 minutes left, the Aggies were able to get right back into the game with this touchdown, but they couldn't get the 2-point conversion, and all we had to do was run out the clock and pick up a first down. But instead, we weren't able to do either, as Mike Johnson was crumbling before our eyes. However, our defense decided they were going to step up, and they made the play of the game. So on 4th and 24, there was nothing the Aggies could do to get near the end zone, and your Vanderbilt Commodores were national champions. We were playing Alabama, and if we wanted to make the college football playoffs, This was a must-win game. Fortunately, we got into the end zone first, but the Crimson Tide responded right back with this touchdown throw. And then they scored another, so Brian Caldwell finally appeared for us and caught a touchdown. Near the end of the half, we got the huge stop on 4th down, which led to a last-second field goal, but Terrence Carpenter couldn't hit it. Alabama didn't learn from earlier in the game, failing another 4th down conversion, and we went up 4 points in the 4th quarter. We had a chance to run out the clock, but after Nathan Ballard picked up the first down, he was shoved backwards and tackled way behind the line of scrimmage, so we had to come out and stop the Crimson Tide one last time. Even though Bama got close to scoring, Leslie Richardson ended the game with this clutch interception, and we were 5-0. The SEC championship was set, and Nathan Ballard started it off with a 10-yard touchdown run, but Missouri responded right back. And then we did the same thing. With 2 minutes left in the half, Nathan Ballard scored again, and then he did it. He broke Barry Sanders' record. We had the greatest college football running back of all time, and we won the SEC championship with ease. The national championship started on a bad note as Quentin Brown threw this clueless interception, and then Minnesota used their great field position to get into the end zone first. However, Quentin Brown drove us all the way down the field to tie it, and on the next drive, Nathan Ballard gave us the lead. After our defense locked up, Scott Wood became prime Deshaun Jackson, and he decided to turn on the burners as he took this punt 83 yards to the house with nobody coming close to catching him. Then we took a 28-point lead with this touchdown, and after this Demarius Green catch, it was clear the game was over. We had won back-to-back national championships.
It was pouring down rain at home against UTEP, so we had to run it, but that wasn't my normal coaching philosophy, so I can't even fault Miles Kendrick for turning the ball over and putting us down 7 points early in the game. However, I have to say, I was pleasantly surprised to see how he responded on the next drive. He was getting more comfortable running the option, and he would end up outrunning everybody on the field for this 83-yard touchdown. I had turned the senior quarterback into a scrambler, and his running ability was giving us a slight edge. Unfortunately, the rain was still making it very difficult to move the ball, but early into the second quarter, we stayed consistent with the passing attempts, and it paid off big time with a Jordan Porter touchdown. My offense was on another level today. However, it wasn't perfect. We had an opportunity to bomb the UTEP defense at the end of the half, but Austin Erickson dropped it. And by the third quarter, we were struggling to move the ball. So all of a sudden, it was a one-possession game. And then after that, UTEP scored, and I needed to get my offense going. So I decided to start calling option run plays like we did in the first half. And just like that, we had moved the ball all the way down the field, and we were threatening to take the lead. With 16 seconds left, Miles Kendrick took in the game winner, and he had performed at a level I had never seen. Next opponent was 1-6. I had coached this offense to a great start to the season, but Miles Kendrick started off roughly against Utah State, and that meant I was back to only calling for him to run the ball, which ended up working out. I had turned Miles Kendrick into a running quarterback, and I was hoping this transformation of his game would land me a better coaching job at the end of the year. He couldn't stop scoring for us, and as an offense, I had coached them well throughout practice to the point where they were actually running the option the right way. Unfortunately, our defense didn't play well against the Aggies today, so we had to shove the ball down their throat attempting to score. And with less than 3 minutes left in the game, the option continued to work, giving us a 4-point lead. However, our defense gave up another touchdown, so we had to throw it, which ended up exposing why we had been running the ball so much with Miles Kendrick. With Utah State taking their 3, our quarterback had one more chance to prove himself, but again, he turned the ball over in an ugly fashion. So if Miles Kendrick had a bad game today, I was going to make my first big decision as a coach, and that would be benching him and bringing in somebody that could throw it. I told him that straight to his face, so I think it helped motivate him to come out and actually deliver some decent throws, helping us move the ball and getting onto the board first against Western Kentucky. After we took that lead, I decided to start calling some more option plays, and that paid off big time with this 38-yard Luke Wyson touchdown run. So we went into the half up 11. However, by the fourth quarter, we found ourselves down by 3, and then after this run that went almost nowhere, Miles Kendrick wasn't getting up. So we had to resort to the backup quarterback, which was not going to be easy. He wasn't ready to come into the game, and it definitely showed. Luckily, our defense locked up, and with 90 seconds left, Miles Kendrick was back. And even with the clock being our biggest threat, I decided to call some run plays to make sure we got in field goal range, but Miles Kendrick threw the game-winning dot to Luke Wyson instead, so we were now 5-2.
I redesigned my offense in the offseason so it would fit the type of players that I was working with, and so far it was going pretty well, with Jace Taylor making an incredible end zone grab. It was a tie game at the half, but after CJ Montez got hurt in the third quarter, I had to put in backup quarterback Isaiah Chavez, who ended up playing really well, dropping bombs to Austin Erickson like it was nothing. In the fourth quarter, it was a tie game, so I started calling more run plays for junior Nathaniel Jones, and I was confident that he could get us the win. With the clock running out, he put us in the field position we needed to kick the game winner, and I coached just well enough on offense for the backup quarterback to get us the win. I opened up conference play coaching against San Diego State at home, and this halfback toss on third down was a bad play call by me, so we tied the game at 3 instead. CJ Montez was struggling to make the right read throughout the game, but I kept making him throw the ball until he got over the mental hump, and we went into the half up 3. By the fourth quarter, we maintained that lead, but once again, we were without our star quarterback. So I had to call almost all run plays, and Nathaniel Jones did everything I asked him to, sealing the game for us, which put us at 4-1 on the year. I understood my offense scoring 6 points is bad, and I was happy with how we started this game. The Air Force defense wasn't able to stop my offensive plays, and even though CJ Montez would get hurt on this one, I coached the backup well enough to take over just as well. Or so I thought. Chavez turned it over a lot, and when it was a one-possession game, he threw the game away by not holding on to the ball. So we had about a minute to get down the field and get in our kicker's range, and without Sherrod White coming in, stepping up big time, and making plays as he did here, where he took it 28 yards to put us in the right position, I'm not sure we would have won this game. I wasn't going to let us lose at home to Fresno State, as I called one of the best plays at the beginning of the game. They were 2-8 this season, so I had to make sure my offense looked amazing if I wanted any good coaching offers in a few weeks. If any schools were looking at me, they'd realize that CJ Montez and I were a package deal, and I wanted to take him with me wherever I went, because even when he threw interceptions, sometimes we scored out of it. By the fourth quarter, Fresno State had crawled back into the game, and with about a minute left, we had to get into field goal range, which would not be the easiest thing to do in the rain. I didn't want us to attempt to throw anything deep with how slippery the ball was, so I called plays that moved us down the field in a completely different way, and it managed to work out in the end. And I was coaching in the Mountain West Conference Championship game against San Diego State. We honestly didn't start it off in the best of ways, with the Aztecs having a 4-point lead, and by the end of the first half, we hadn't gotten into the end zone. However, in the third quarter, CJ Montez didn't go with the play I called, and I couldn't even get mad at him because it worked. So I kind of just let him take over and do whatever he wanted to for the rest of the game. And surprisingly, it went well, with the junior quarterback placing the ball perfectly wherever he wanted to on the field. So with 3.5 minutes left, we finally took a lead on San Diego State as CJ Montez hooked up with Jamar Sanders. And a couple minutes later, I called a play where we went with an aggressive deep shot to Austin Erickson to end any hope the Aztecs had. That was what it took to win the Mountain West Championship, and I had coached this offense to the top. I needed to focus up because my offense was off to a bad start at Kyle Field. And after this terrible read, which turned into an interception, I screamed at Jalen Milroe while he walked off the field. I think it really got to him because with a minute left in the first quarter, he connected with JoJo Earl for a massive 80-yard touchdown play to get us within 7, and JoJo Earl was having an amazing game, fighting for every last yard that he could get. I really do believe that my outburst changed how Jalen Milroe played, because he performed extremely well the rest of the game. Even though we started off poorly against Texas A&M, by the end of it, we were on pace to beat the Aggies, but then Jalen Milroe could have just slid and ended the game, but instead, he took a hit and lost the ball. So all of a sudden, my offense was in an overtime shootout on the road, and I was calling all of the right plays. But unfortunately, the Crimson Tide's defense was absolutely pitiful until they got this huge stop on the 2-point conversion. So now all we needed to do was get a touchdown on Texas A&M and make this game-winning 2-point conversion. I was extremely pumped about this result. I had a tough decision to make at starting QB, so when backup quarterback Mike Tyler started off against Georgia with a pass to Kobe Prentice that would turn into a 63-yard touchdown, I was very impressed. He was already building amazing chemistry with the rest of the offense, so you know I was excited after this 39-yard dot to Kendrick Law. He was only a freshman, so there was still room for improvement, but I felt like he had the potential to be great. However, I can't sit here and act like he was perfect with missed throws that should have been touchdowns and horrendous reads reads that led to Bulldog interceptions. With how the second half went, I felt like the first half could have been a fluke, and with 39 seconds left, we found ourselves in a tie game, so I was very happy to see that JoJo Earl got us almost all the way to midfield. Then Mike Tyler stepped up and put us in a position to win by finding Kendrick Law with this 31-yard laser, and after our kicker nailed the game winner, I was relieved that we stayed undefeated. If I could coach this offense to a win against our rivals, we would clinch a spot in the SEC championship, but we were certainly not off to a good start against Auburn. They were locking up our receivers and Jalen Milroe was struggling, so I ripped him a new one on the sideline, which ended up working like always. He was able to throw a touchdown pass just a couple of minutes later, and midway through the second quarter, he would place a pass perfectly over the Auburn defense to JoJo Earl for a 56-yard touchdown, which tied the game. But by the third quarter, we were back down 10 and struggling, so I was relieved we scored a couple of minutes later. To start the fourth, we ended up going up by 10 points, and when Auburn responded right back with a touchdown of their own, I knew this would be a crazy finish. With 2 minutes left, Jalen Milroe threaded the needle on an amazing play call by me, but Auburn scored again, so we only had 39 seconds left to get a field goal, and with time winding down, it looked like we had just gotten into kicking range. I watched as the Alabama kicker tied it up, and now it was time for overtime, where we got into the end zone first. After our defense held Auburn to a field goal in the second overtime, we were set. All we had to do was get a touchdown, and we did that. I was pumped that we escaped with a win, and it was behind Jalen Milroe's 7 touchdowns. I had to coach in the SEC championship, and after this great play call by me, we were off to a good start. Then Jamarian Miller rushed for 13 yards to score the first touchdown, but you might have noticed that Mike Taylor was back in the game, and that's because Jalen Milroe suffered a concussion, which was going to be a problem. Mike Taylor hadn't played a snap in almost a month, so I realized that I was going to need to switch up my play calling if we wanted any chance to win. This kick tied it up at 10, and by the fourth quarter, we were still stuck in a tie. Every time I tried to let Mike Tyler sling it, he couldn't get anything going, and the fact that we were still in this game was incredible. I love the guy, so I put all my faith in him with 2 minutes left, and then he finally came alive and did something right. He found running back Jamarian Miller, who would take it 58 yards while juking and breaking tackles to get us into the end zone. After that, I wish I could say it went to overtime, but Ole Miss scored, leaving us with about 30 seconds left, and on our last chance to tie it up, Mike Tyler dropped back and threw the Hail Mary just a bit too far. So we lost the SEC championship, and I was ready to get a head coaching job. So I knew that if we didn't beat Virginia today, I would be on the hot seat. And Mike Tyler decided he wanted to start the game the worst way possible. I'm not sure what happened to him, but this was not the same quarterback that I coached at Alabama, and I was fortunate that my defense was able to make some clutch plays. However, that level of play didn't translate to my offense, so after Mike Tyler underthrew his receiver on this play, I looked him in the eyes and I threatened him. I made it very clear that if he didn't win this game, he was benched, and to my surprise, his offensive line didn't seem to care to help him. By midway through the third quarter, it was a 3-possession game, but that changed as Mike Tyler finally got us on the board less than 2 minutes later, and all of a sudden, Virginia only had a 6-point lead on us. So after my defense got a very clutch stop on third down, Mike Tyler had one last chance to win it and keep his starting job. He started off the drive by finding sophomore receiver TJ Keith for a 57-yard play, and then he went right back to him on the game-winning touchdown throw. Somehow, I coached us to a win after being down by 20, where I had a chance to get my biggest win ever against undefeated Syracuse. They came to the Ville as the number 4 team in the country, and it looked like they were going to leave as that as well. Our offense was still lackluster, and our defense certainly wasn't good, so I had to watch from the sidelines as my players couldn't execute my plays. We had a terrible first quarter, and I had to bench quarterback Mike Tyler after this interception. Even though he transferred here because of me, I was way too mad to keep him in the game after this pick 6, and it was nice to watch backup QB Ronnie Mitchell actually run the ball with speed. He lit a spark in our offense, coming in and getting us on the board for the first time in the game, so all of a sudden we were back within 1 possession, and to start the third quarter, I watched Ronnie Mitchell pull off one of the best throws I'd seen this year, which got us all the way down to the Syracuse 7-yard line. From there, we would actually tie it up against the 4th best team, and I don't know what I did with this change, but this could single-handedly save my job and get us a bowl game, as Ronnie Mitchell continued to dot up the Syracuse defense with ease. This was a completely different team than the one I coached for the past 6 weeks, but with 7 seconds left, Syracuse tied it up. On top of this, overtime against the Orange wasn't going well, as they scored almost immediately into it, so I was shocked to see that Ronnie Mitchell stepped up and tied it back up right after, but I made him go for the win here, and that was the greatest play call of my career as I took down a top 5 team. And that concludes all 100 games of the video. Honestly, at this point, I just want to take a minute to talk to the camera. I never really do this. It's always me behind the camera on a voiceover, but I need to thank you all just from the bottom of my heart. Over the last half year, you all have changed my entire life. Before the YouTube took off, I was pretty lost on where I wanted to be in life. I didn't know what I wanted to do. Kind of just seemed like the same pattern of the same things over and over every day, doing things that I didn't want to do. And now you all have put me in a position where I no longer have to return to college next semester, and I can really double down on making sure my content is as good as possible for you all. Obviously, none of that would be possible if you all hadn't shown the immense amount of support that you have. And from the bottom of my heart, again, I just can't thank you all enough for that. I want to give a big shout out to my editors, Noah and Benaya. They make it so it's possible to put out 3 videos a week for you all. And if I didn't have them on my team when I was doing it all on my own, I just couldn't handle it. So bringing them on was a huge addition. And the last thing I want to do is give a big thank you to Underdog Fantasy. They were the first company that offered me a sponsored deal, and that is the only reason that the channel is able to be where it's at right now. I took all the money that I made from my first YouTube paycheck and the Underdog deal and poured it into a new PC, a new mic, a camera. So without Underdog Fantasy, I don't know if any of this would have been possible. To end the 100K special, I just want to thank you all one more time. And if you do want to keep supporting me, support the company that was there for me from the start. The first link in my description or using code Bordeaux on Underdog Fantasy will double your initial deposit. And I really do believe that they are one of the reasons I'm where I'm at right now. And I'm just thankful for everyone that has been with me along this journey. It's only up from here. So one last time, thank you for 100K, and hopefully this is just the beginning.